What's up, everybody? This is Alice Christopher from the Duran, and I have with me Peter Lavelle, host of RT's Crosstalk. And today we're going to be talking about Trump's problem with the European Union. Peter, we just did a video on Angela Merkel and her problem inside the European Union.
Yeah. No. We just wrote her obituary. Okay?
We just wrote her obituary. And we mentioned, you touched upon Trump and how he's another factor in Merkel's problems and Merkel's demise. Now, Trump gave an interview on Fox Business with Maria Bartiromo, and he brought up, among other things, his focus on the European Union and the unfair trade balance. Now, there's an economic angle that Trump is taking with Europe, and especially focusing on Germany, but there's also a NATO angle that he's taking with Europe, and I guess you could say a military-industrial complex angle. Summarize how Trump is looking at Europe right now, and segue into why Europe should be scared shitless.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that Fox News interview, because I think it was there he said, well, the Europeans may be as bad as the Chinese. That's what he's saying, getting on Air Force One to go to Europe. My goodness. He's made it very clear that you and I have been having this conversation a lot lately. I mean, this tariff thing isn't a whim. This is something he's going to drive home all the way until he gets what he wants. I think that, he's going, this is a lot of pre-summit angling. He's strategizing right now. He's telling everybody a deal will be made. And maybe, and now I'm looking at the EU trade and I'm looking at NATO simultaneously. A deal will be made. And it takes about 8 hours to fly. Maybe you guys can get together and tell me what you think. Okay? He's not going to say there's going to be this going to be done exactly for NATO, for trade. No, you guys get together, okay? And then you come up with a deal, and then we'll sit down and talk, and they'll tell you if I agree or not. This is what he's making them do is making them react to his bluster, okay? His strategy. Because everybody wants to know, how far will he go? All right? And this is a perfect negotiating tactic, all right? Because it's incumbent upon them to do his bidding. He's made it very clear, and I want our viewers to know, because it's not mentioned very much, and it's not conspiratorial or anything, is that for decades, since the Marshall Plan at the end of the Second World War in Europe, Europe was given preferential trade status to be part of the American Pax Americana alliance. Okay, that's this geopolitics. Okay, that's what you do. That's what hegemons do. And someone like Donald Trump, being a businessman, says, well, you guys are rich. I mean, really rich. You got a bigger population than the United States collectively. You have a bigger GDP collectively than the United States, but you're still taking advantage of us. And they are, okay? And now Trump is going to say, we will address that. On NATO, you guys for years, you've been saying that everyone in the bloc is going to pay 2% GDP for their own defense. Well, you're not doing it. Greece does, I know. But most countries don't. And that has to be addressed. No more talk like at the immigration crisis conference that the Europeans had, where it was all raw talk, and then an agreement that is non-binding. No. Trump doesn't work with non-binding stuff. Okay, he doesn't. He wants action. He's transactional, and the Europeans know that. And the Europeans, big business leaders and financial leaders, they don't see Merkel as being able to cut a deal. A deal can be made, sure. That's the art of the agreement that he's going to make. But with the NATO thing, it looks like to me, Alex, he's still in campaign mode. He still thinks NATO is obsolete. Okay, he does. Okay, he's got his little circle around him, but at the end of the day, he's going to say no. I mean, he keeps doing this. So he's setting the stage to get the Europeans to line up in order and present him a deal. Oh, and by the way, he's going to meet Vladimir Putin. Okay, he's going to really spoil the party, isn't he? Okay, because everyone's terrified after all this, 4 years of banging away, the Russian, the bogeyman. And Trump was just going to say, well, then why don't you spend money on your defense if you're so scared of those guys? Why should the U.S. pay for it? Why are 35,000 American troops in Germany still? When did the war end? Oh, over 7 decades ago. Really? Well, we don't need to be there. All right? So, I mean, he's sending a shiver through all of these bureaucracies, because these bureaucracies, they have a life of their own. NATO exists because it exists. That's about as far as their intellectual thinking goes. NATO exists to defend against what? Well, let's have a serious conversation about that. What do they need to defend against? Well, if you don't have any borders, then I guess it's immigration. But it's certainly not Russia. And that's going to be a really cold shower they're all going to have to take, because they all know that. And the trade, Trump doesn't want to pay for it anymore. What's the point? And so, historically speaking, it's very interesting. This is the first time since 1945 where Russia and the United States are in a position, I want to be careful, to determine the future fate of Europe. It's remarkable, isn't it? It's really remarkable. Because if you look at the Second World War, you could look at the second European-wide civil war, and it took 2 outside powers to put it to an end. And now Trump is going to say, basically, and this is very much what he's saying, if you can't make a deal, I'll make a deal with somebody else. Okay? See, the Europeans never in their wildest nightmare thought that this could ever possibly happen, because they gave up sovereignty, the control of their borders, control of their defense, intelligence. They gave everything up to the United States. And then now a leader comes and says, well, I don't care about it anymore. It's not in my interest. You figure it out. Yeah. This is an amazing time.
How far do you think Trump realistically can take the NATO thing? I mean, there's obviously some lines that he can't cross, and there's going to be some. I mean, how far can he really take it?
Well, I think he will. I think on the budgets, on the defense expenditure budgets, I think he'll go to the hilt on that one. All right. I mean, he's not going to say he's not going to say blatantly, if you don't pay, we're getting out. That's not on the table. Okay. But, I mean, I think essentially in his mind is that if you don't want to pay for your defense, why should the U.S.? I think that's what's in his mind. It's a bee in his bonnet. Yeah. I mean, just explain to me again how this works. Because what do I get out of it? I mean, I was reading, I think it was on Zero Hedge. I mean, there's only like a few dozen tanks that actually work in the German military. I mean, hey, this doesn't. It's a fake military, because and the Germans say, well, they pay for the upkeep of bases and all that. They say we do the infrastructure stuff and all that, and Trump said that doesn't cut ice with me. So how far will it go? Of course, his bark is going to be worse than his bite, but it's going to send a tone. It sets a tone, and for me, I hope the Europeans will start realizing, well, we have to start getting our own defense and security strategy determined by us. And that'll be the first time since the Second World War. And I personally think they're going to realize that they don't need to spend so much on defense on conventional arms, because there's no real threat. All right. And this is what, and also it's going to send a message about Ukraine. I mean, Trump saying, the Crimeans like being part of Russia. I mean, Jesus, that was amazing at the G7, okay? And everybody's, oh my God, he actually said that, which is true, okay? And then, if you Europeans, you're the ones that, had your grand plans for Ukraine. Well, I guess it's your problem right now, because Trump, he's going to, the mantra is, nothing can happen bettering relations with Russia until the Crimean issue is resolved. Well, it is resolved. And in Trump's mind, it is resolved. Okay. So what do we do now? What do we do now? And so he's taking that off the table. Now, there's a simple solution to all this, and I don't know why it's not talked about. Remember, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania were brought into the Soviet Union during the Second World War, but the United States never recognized that legally. And they just, it was as if they're not part of the Soviet Union. And of course, they were part of the Soviet Union. But the same thing can be done with Crimea. Crimea is part of Russia. If you don't want to recognize it as part of Russia, well, that's your business, okay? But it shouldn't be a barrier. I mean, the United States and the Soviet Union signed arms control agreements, had trade agreements, and the United States all along didn't recognize the Baltic republics as part of the Soviet Union. That's a way to tweak it, okay? And that's what I think Trump in his mind saying, we're just going to have to move on from that. And the Europeans better get on board, because then the Trump will say, well, I'm going to make a deal with the Russians anyway. This, and you can take it any way you want. All right. You can moan and groan and brood, or you can just say, yep, it's time to move on. And I think that's one of the things he wants to do, which, of course, puts the mindset. There was the American ambassador to Estonia that resigned. OK, yeah. And I just thought, the entire infrastructure of NATO, led by the United States, it's like a church for these people. And they have their scriptures, right, and they have their bishops, and they have the laity. It's all a fake religion. And Trump's saying we don't need this religion anymore. It's outlived its value. And so this is how far we will go. It's basically how far he can change the conversation. I don't think, he's not going to pull the United States out of NATO. He's not going to say dissolve NATO. But he's just going to say what the status quo isn't working. And again, come up with your own ideas and we will talk. Yeah. And if you don't have any ideas, then I'm not going to take you seriously. He doesn't take these people seriously. Not Theresa May, not Angela Merkel, not Macron. He didn't take any of them seriously. Yeah. And I think he truly believes he can make some kind of deal with Putin. I don't know if there can be any deal made in this environment right now. I'm actually quite skeptical of the meeting and what it can accomplish. But in Trump's mind, he's basically sticking his finger right in everyone's eye, particularly the mainstream media, and say, I am president of the United States and I have control of foreign policy and I'm going to do what I want. And you already hate me. There's no downside. No. I mean, come on, think about it. There's no downside anymore. This actually is liberating for Trump, because he doesn't have to play to them. He's not like Obama, okay, where everything is a waltz, where everybody works together, everybody knows the steps and all that. And Trump's saying, well, I don't even like to dance, let alone a waltz. Okay, I'm going to go in my own stride. Okay, no, I think it's interesting. You can really flip this upside down in many ways. The institutional inertia that he's going to face is immense, but he still has the United States is by far the most powerful member of NATO, and if the U.S. doesn't want to parlay, NATO is kind of naked. Let's face the fact. So as a foremost expert on Russia, take it from the other angle. Putin is seeing this. In your mind, take us into the mind of what you see from the Kremlin and maybe from Putin. Putin's seeing this. I'm sure he sees the interviews with Fox News. He sees Trump comparing Europe to a smaller China. He sees the trade wars. He sees the NATO talk. What do you think is going through the head of the Kremlin through Putin? What do you think they're thinking about now that a summit meeting is going to be taking place on the 16th? And they're seeing Trump doing all these maneuvers, and they see a Merkel as well, a weakening Merkel on the European stage. How do you think they're going to position themselves, and what do you think they're expecting? Well, I think, first of all, I think the Kremlin's point of view is if your adversaries are lining up in a circular firing squad, let that continue, okay? I mean, fine, and let's see what it's about. Number two, Russia's strategic patience with the West continues. And it's very frustrating for a lot of Russians, I know. They say, why should we take these insults constantly? You put sanctions on Russia without any explanation, without any facts, meddling in election. Well, there's still no evidence of that, and there won't be any, okay? Also, Vladimir Putin has pitched himself as that if you want to talk, let's talk. He's kept that consistent line, all right? Russia has never once, in any official venue or document, wanted or asked for sanction relief. Mm-hmm. They won't do that. It'll have to be the Europeans and the Americans to mention that. Will there be any horse trading? We talked about this earlier. There's not much to trade anymore, unfortunately. There's not literal trade between the United States and Russia. That is minuscule now. The issue, I still think, and maybe some people think I got Iran in my head. I think Iran is going to be mentioned. I think Trump wants to test Putin how far the Iranian-Russian relationship is. He's going to be disappointed because I see this China-Russia relationship growing, and the Americans are worried about that, which they caused it. Okay. And they can't. They want to see what degree it can be reversed. I think also there looks like every indication that the U.S. is quitting Syria, and I think they're going to talk about how that can be done, where the perception of a win-win to get out. I think Ukraine as well. I don't see Trump having his heart into Ukraine.
Yeah.
I mean, look at all the Ukrainian oligarchs that gave money to Hillary Clinton. Again, he remembers. And Poroshenko's slavish support of Hillary Clinton, he remembers. And so, I'm not. I can go both ways. I've been discussing this for weeks now. I mean, having two world leaders meet that are in an adversarial relationship is always a good thing. It's always a good thing. But at the same time, meeting and just for meeting is not enough for me. But the middle ground is it may be the start of something. We will see. And real quickly, I don't want to be too much of a wonk here, but there are arms control agreements that are coming to an end, and we desperately need to address these issues. We don't need an accelerated arms race. Right. And we're at a period right now where these agreements are coming to an end, and they haven't even started rethinking them or updating them. This is, we can, you can dislike a politician and you can take a swipe at them like Trudeau and dismiss Merkel, and I mean that's all the cannon fodder of politics we love to talk about. But arms control is that's really sober, and that's something you can't overlook for just global security. So I think that's something, and I know that Trump is interested in that according to his tweets.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's some stuff there to talk about, absolutely, but the whole thing is to kick the Europeans in line.
Yeah. Just
get in line. And he's got it in his head, and I don't think it's going to be alleviated. I mean, look how the press is treating him. I mean, everybody's running to the hill. Oh my God, the sky is falling. The sky is falling, which Trump, of course, loves because he's the disruptor. I mean, a leader like the last time a leader like this went to Europe with Europe shaking to its very core was Woodrow Wilson, okay? Really. Seriously.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, and the thing is that this is exactly what Trump loves. He says, everyone's saying, what is he thinking? He loves that. His ego is huge.
So if you had to look at a Trump personality, and we mentioned it in a previous video that him and Merkel obviously would not get along and don't get along. Which European leaders do you think Trump could actually get along with and find common ground with? And, just guys people that looking at Trump and looking at some European Union leaders, you could say, Trump can deal with these guys. Did you have any names at all? Any countries?
Because the way I would think about it is that what country would be able to transact the deal? I mean, I think he would probably get along with Orban, okay, and the new prime minister of Italy, but so, I mean.
There's no value. There's no
value. Why put in so much effort when you're in the European Union and you have the other countries you have to negotiate with, and you never hear a single voice? And Angela Merkel certainly doesn't speak for the European Union anymore. We've seen that with this immigration crisis. We saw this over the weekend. Merkel. It was a cosmetic victory, but nothing was achieved. And Trump sees this. He just sees, I can't make a deal with these people. That's why I'll repeat myself. You guys get yourselves together and you present me with the deal, and I'll tell you if I like it, okay? Because I'm not going to pull your chestnuts out of the fire because it's really on fire. And he doesn't care. He's not a nitty-gritty, wonkish guy, and he's just going to say, you do it.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm going to go visit Vlad while you're doing it, okay? And so, everything, the whole Euro aristocracy, NATO aristocracy, because that's what they are. They're shaking in their boots. This was never supposed to happen. We exist because we exist. Other than that, there's no reason why. And in marketing, that's the only question that matters, the reason why. Yeah. And Donald Trump intuitively understands that. So it's going to be interesting, okay? Because I can't predict, but the EU is probably as bad as China. That's all they needed to know. And they got a little time to get their act together. But it's the EU, I mean, they can't move. They're too lethargic,
yeah.
And there are too many divergent interests. And plus you have, with the Italians, is perfect, you can't do something. We're moving on, okay? And this is an anathema to what the European Union is supposed to be about, okay? They're victims of their own terrible hubristic mistakes.
No doubt, and Angela Merkel first and foremost. So to close out the conversation, Peter, tie in how you think Trump is going to use Europe's immigration problems for his benefit, and tie in how you think the Western mainstream media is going to use the U.S. and Europe's immigration policies to hit Trump. Because underneath all of this is immigration.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that Trump can say, look, the West is experiencing a massive immigration problem, and it's highly politicized. Look what the Europeans are doing or trying to do. They're not solving problems. I'm solving problems. And you know what? Children should never be taken from their parents. So why don't you come in legally? Come in legally. Build a wall. Okay? Because Trump, and Trump is saying, he's looking at the Europeans and he's telling his base, look what, you want the European future for us? People just roll on the beach, okay? Now, those images still stick in my head, okay? It's just terrifying that could happen. And so, I mean, Trump, he's winning the immigration debate. He's winning it. All of the nasty propaganda, fake news, his base doesn't believe it. And also, the Europeans are looking to say, well, Trump can solve his problems. We got to solve ours, too. We don't have the right leadership to do it because you guys are the mediocre center. The mediocre, not the left, not the right. It's this mediocre center that doesn't accomplish anything. All they do, I mean, in America, we always say, these people, they protect their zip codes, okay? But in the European Union, they protect their really cushy office in Brussels, okay? It isn't cutting ice anymore for the average European.
How do you think the MSNBCs and the CNNs, though, are going to put this on Trump? They're going to say, okay, the immigration, look at what's happening in Europe, look what's happening in the U.S., and here's Trump causing more trouble. How do you think they're going to present this narrative?
I think it's really brilliant because it'll be two ways. I mean, you and I will look at it and laugh. Is it Trump is destroying Western institutions and values? And you and I will say, but the European Union and the Democrats and the liberals have already done it. This is called salvage game, folks. It's salvage. We're at the end of the rope. It's already been destroyed. Come on. And the Europeans don't have the guts or the will, the vision to get out of their own mess, okay? And Donald Trump is saying, I see the problems and I'm going to fix it, okay? I mean, and MSNBC and CNN, they're going to be saying things, and you and I are going to say, yeah, and, okay? See, that you know what happened? The problem is that they just have no historical perspective at all. Do you think anybody at CNN even knows who Woodrow Wilson is? I doubt it.
Doubt it.
Okay, so the coverage of it will be fascinating because you're going to have all of these pundits sitting around like on Morning Joke and Meager, the guys that always kind of nodding their head, nodding. It's like a dog in a car, just like this, okay, and they're going to go on every single issue how he's disrupting everything, and you and I are going to be watching and say, yeah. That's what he was voted in to do, is to disrupt all of this. So I'm not saying Donald Trump has the solutions. I think he identifies a lot of problems well. I'm not, application and presentation, sometimes it's a bit rough, okay, to say the least.
Yeah.
But, I think that, as the West reviews this, you can have the same pundits that have gotten every single thing wrong for 2 decades, okay?
There it is.
They've never been right, and they never get fired.
They get promoted.
So they can go, they get promoted, okay? Max Boot and all these nuts, okay? When's the last time he was right about anything, okay? What's the other guy? Always losing. Peterson? What's his name? The other guy that left Fox, okay? I mean, these are pundits for the military-industrial complex, okay? They never saw a war they didn't like, all right? And that's completely out of sync with the base, I think, in Europe and I think in the United States. This is the great disruption. This is what you and I are experiencing right now.
And it's
because the status quo,
and it's two realities.
Doesn't work.
Yeah, and I mean, you're seeing it from 2 realities. You're seeing it, like you said, the way we're going to see it, and then we're going to have the MSNBC, CNN reality of all this stuff that's going on. It really is 2 different worlds as to how it's being framed.
Yep. And it's going to be a great show on top of it all.
Well, Trump is a showman, first and foremost. That's for sure.
I wonder who he's going to push out of the way this time. What was it, like the Slovenian prime minister?
Yeah. As long as there's no, removing of the dandruff
or when he was in Paris and he was meeting with Macron's wife. She's walking in front of him. He looks at her ass like, yeah, look at that. She's pretty good for her age. Okay, and he's just like, oh my god. I couldn't believe I was just laughing.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Oh, it's such a relief to have somebody that's genuine. Okay, if it's vulgar, but at least it's authentic.
Yeah, after 8 years of Obama, is just, I mean, it really is like a breath of fresh air. I mean, it's human. That's what I like about it, is that it's human.
Yeah, I mean, look at Macron's wife. You think, well, at her age, she's looking pretty good. I think everybody would say that. So why can't you say it? Okay.
Yeah, that's Trump. Yep.
Well, the thing is, maybe the Europeans are going to start to understanding how this guy works, because they're just so obsessed. They're ideologically so obsessed they can't break out of it. This is really, really dangerous, because with this kind of mindset, you can't even identify problems anymore. Your house is on fire, and then you say, well, the Russians must be doing it. I mean, aren't you, hasn't that excuse kind of run its course? It's not right. Like, hating Russia doesn't solve your problems, does it? I don't think so.
Hasn't solved any yet. Hasn't solved it for Greece, Portugal, Italy, nothing.
But it tells me they don't understand how to identify problems.
Yeah.
And when you're in that position, that's when you're out of touch with reality. And we're going to see more of this revolt. I mean, Italy, the electoral outcome in Italy is one of the most fascinating things since the Second World War, where you have very far to the right, very far to the left, and they have come together because the center failed. And that center is what created the European reality right now. And so this tells me that there's an attempt to reinvent politics in Europe, and it's about time. It really is about time, because I think time is running out for all of this. Yeah. Okay, and the same thing for NATO. I mean, with NATO, they're thinking about bringing in Colombia. I mean, who's running the show? What? Colombia. Why? We exist because we exist.
No.
That's not how a military alliance works. Okay, so good luck to the Colombians. I got nothing against them.
They can send troops to Germany.
Yeah.
There you go.
I could set up a couple bases in Poland. get a view of Kaliningrad. Okay, that's, be a great way to see the world, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Colombian and I spent a year in Estonia. It gets cold. Okay. We didn't see any Russians. No bears. Okay.
Protecting Colombia's borders from a Russia invasion.
Yeah. That works.
Well, I think if there's one,
will believe it.
Yeah, I think if there's one president that can inject reality, some cold, sober reality into this whole thing, it's Trump. And he'll do it, and he'll be brash about it, but at least he'll be honest and upfront about it. And that's a reality that many people on the left don't want to hear.
The thing is that, he can knock off Merkel, but see, that's a demonstration effect. So when May or Macron want to have a bone to pick with Trump, they're going to remember what he did to Merkel. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. So, the Europeans either just become the appendage that they are and get in line. They'll have to be more generous with tariffs, or they have a choice. And it's that woke moment. Yeah. Do it on your own. Have your own borders. Police your borders. Be serious about it. Look at demographics and look at immigration, and how are you going to do it in a smart way? Because a smart way is not to let people roll up on your beaches and cross your country. Remember, the Roman Empire was never defeated militarily. What defeated it was immigration. People just walked in, and it dissolved. They didn't have the resolve to preserve themselves. This is happening again. The European elites don't have the resolve to save their own project.
Yeah, but now they're being forced and accelerated to find solutions and answers. And if they don't, then we know what's going to happen.
Somebody else will solve it.
Somebody else will solve it for them. Peter Lavelle, host of RT's Crosstalk, thank you very much for a fascinating conversation on Trump, Europe, and all the dynamics involved in this situation. Guys, if you liked this video, click on the subscribe button down below. Also, click on the notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video. Visit the Duran shop, buy a t-shirt, help support the Duran. Peter Lavelle, host of RT's Crosstalk. Once again, thank you very much. Guys, until next time, take care.